The National Desk, America's News, now.
At this point, I think he has a strong campaign and a strong message to deliver, and I believe he's going to move forward, and I'm going to support him.
Some standing behind Biden, some not. A divided Democratic Party taking shape, and now a critical Biden donor is weighing in. Hurricane Beryl was a record-setting storm, now causing forecasters to revisit their hurricane predictions. Just how bad of a hurricane season are we in for this year? Then NASA astronauts from Boeing's Starliner speaking out about their extended stay in space. Hear what they have to say about the wait to come back home. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Tornado watches and warnings have been in effect over parts of upstate New York this afternoon as the remnants of Beryl, once a hurricane, make its way over the Northeast. At least one tornado already touched down in the state today. And these watches and severe thunderstorm warnings, they are expected to continue tonight through Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine until the early hours tomorrow morning. This as the National Weather Service has confirmed that an EF3 tornado hit Mount Vernon, Indiana yesterday and also caused by the post-tropical Beryl system. A warehouse was damaged during that impact. Meanwhile, in Texas, more than 1.6 million households and businesses remain without power after Beryl slammed the southeast coast on Monday. The region's largest power company telling its customers tonight it could still be days before they can restore service to everyone. Meanwhile, off the coast of Florida and Georgia is what NOAA is calling Atlantic Disturbance 1. Right now, it has just a 10% chance of forming into a tropical storm over the next 2 days, but this system is expected to move over the southeastern part of the United States by the weekend. The strength of Beryl has forecasters now upgrading their prediction of named storms this season from 23 to 25. There have been 3 already, and they're predicting 12 more to reach hurricane status in this season instead of the originally predicted 11. And they expect 6 of those to become Category 3 or stronger hurricanes. 2020 set the all-time high mark of 30 named storms. Tonight, another high-profile voice calling for President Biden to step out of the race for the White House. Just weeks after hosting a record-setting fundraiser for the president, actor and activist George Clooney has said in an op-ed that Democrats can't win with him. Meantime, Democrats in Congress remain divided over President Joe Biden's bid for the White House. National correspondent Matt Gelka takes a look at the state of the race.
Overwhelming support.
Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi did not commit to Joe Biden's candidacy when she was asked about it Wednesday.
It's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short.
But the president has said he's staying in the race multiple times. Pelosi seemed to suggest that Democrats stick to a wait-and-see approach.
Whatever he decides, we go with. I think it's really important, and I would hope everyone would join in, to let him deal with this NATO conference.
The comments didn't make the picture for Democrats clearer on where support for the president stands. Members who have come out against him have cited voter concerns on his age and viability. And voters have been hit with multiple reports about Biden needing more sleep or going to bed early, prompting national security concerns. His team says he's up to the job.
If the national security team needs to get to the president, they get to the president. And it doesn't matter what the hour on the clock says. He's always there. He's always available.
In a tweet, New York Democrat Richie Torres said his party needs a reckoning with the down-ballot effect of whomever we nominate. What matters is not how we feel, but what the numbers tell us. Recent polls are not moving the Democrats' way. The Cook Political Report now says 3 safe Democratic states, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and part of Nebraska, have become less safe in their latest rankings. And they move 3 toss-up swing states, Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada, to lean Republican this week. And it's not just battlegrounds. Biden is starting to show weakness in other states that haven't voted Republican in decades, like New York, New Jersey, and Virginia, adding to the post-debate Democratic panic. For the National Desk in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
Matt, thank you. And Democratic Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez has filed articles of impeachment against Supreme Court Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, citing their refusal to recuse themselves from certain prominent cases where there was a perceived conflict of interest, saying it serves, quote, a grave threat to American rule of law. The Republican-controlled House is unlikely to bring the articles to the floor for a vote. If it were to happen, they'd be the first to be removed from the bench through impeachment. An MS-13 gang leader has pleaded guilty to racketeering and gun charges in connection with 8 murders. Alexi Saenz was in a federal court today on Long Island. The deaths he was accused of ordering include the brutal 2016 killings of 2 teen girls, Kayla Cuevas and Nisa Mickens. Charges are still pending against Saenz' brother, Iro, who prosecutors say was also involved. 6 foreign nationals facing charges right now for putting skimming devices on ATMs and store checkouts in at least 6 states. Investigators say this allowed them to create counterfeit bank cards with stolen information. Police say the skimmers were found at ATMs, Walmarts, and BJ's wholesale clubs in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Virginia, Maryland, New York, and New Jersey. Virginia is the latest state to try and restrict cell phone use in schools. Governor Glenn Youngkin issued an executive order for schools to provide a cell phone-free education across the state. The governor's office cited data from the CDC that says spending more than 3 hours a day on social media doubles the risk of poor mental health, and that the rate of suicide increased by 167% since 2010 for girls and 91% since 2010 for boys. Florida and Indiana have passed laws banning all cell phones in schools, while Ohio has a law restrictions on the books for cell phone use in classes. At least 9 other states across the country are reviewing legislation to ban or restrict smartphone use in public schools. And the chair of the Federal Reserve was back on Capitol Hill today to fill lawmakers in on the state of the economy and take questions on the future of interest rates. The National Desk's Antrell Nashar reports from Capitol Hill.
In the labor market,
Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell giving Congress a read on the economy during a volatile time for inflation, interest rates, and politics.
we're growing at around 2%, it feels like. Inflation is down to 2.6%. Unemployment's at 4.1. These are good numbers.
But he's aware that as painful as inflation is, the Fed's high interest rates come with their own sting, making it more expensive for individuals and businesses to borrow money.
To bring inflation down, the Fed has been working on with restrictive policy on cooling demand. That has been working, and the supply side has been healing.
Moody's Analytics chief economist Mark Zandi says now is the time for the Fed to cut rates, arguing a steady rise in unemployment and declining inflation makes it hard to justify a restrictive 5.5% federal funds rate. Only one rate cut is expected this year, likely not until September at the earliest. Powell, who holds firm the Fed's apolitical role, is also confronted with a conservative proposal to eliminate the Fed's dual mandate of price stability and maximum employment detailed in Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's blueprint for a Republican-led federal government. Former President Trump has tried to distance himself from Project 2025, but its proposed Fed overhaul was written by Paul Winfrey, who served as a top domestic policy official in the Trump White House. Accusing the Fed of operating on political motives, Winfrey writes, the only permanent remedy is to take the monetary steering wheel out of the Federal Reserve's hands and return it to the people.
Having an independent central bank is really essential. If you want to have high and volatile inflation, then the quickest road to that would be to undermine the independence of the central bank.
Now, Powell again told lawmakers that while he and his colleagues have been encouraged by recent inflation reports, they still need more proof that inflation is falling before they can cut rates. And that proof, or at least some of it, could come as soon as tomorrow in the June Consumer Price Index.
They are sure to analyze each piece of data as it comes out. So what are economists expecting to see in the Consumer Price Index tomorrow, as you mentioned?
Yeah, Amir, according to a Dow Jones survey of economists, June CPI tomorrow is expected to come in at 3.1%. Compare that to May's reading of 3.3%. And that expected decline is expected to be a reflection of steadying food and gas prices.
Okay, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens out of the Fed. All eyes are watching, that's for sure. Live from Washington, D.C., Atrel Nashar, thank you. And opening arguments are underway right now in Alec Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial, nearly 3 years after the fatal shooting of Rust cinematographer Helena Hutchins.
He pointed the gun at another human being, cocked the hammer, and pulled that trigger. In reckless disregard for Ms. Hutchins' safety.
This was an unspeakable tragedy, but Alec Baldwin committed no crime. He was an actor acting, playing the role of Harlan Rust. An actor playing a character can act in ways that are lethal.
The actor was rehearsing a scene when the prop gun he was holding fired a live round. He says he pulled back the gun's hammer but did not pull the trigger, and he has pleaded not guilty. Now, the movie's armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, she was found guilty of manslaughter in March and is serving an 18-month sentence. Baldwin also faces up to 18 months in prison if convicted. And tonight, ex-NBA player Jonte Williams, he's pleading guilty to an illegal betting scheme that cost him his career. The former Toronto Raptors baller admitted that he withdrew from games so that he and others could benefit from electronic bets placed on how he would perform. Porter said today, quote, "I knew what I did was wrong and unlawful, and I'm deeply sorry for my conduct." An investigation found Porter placed more than a dozen bets on games before being caught and banned from the league. He faces up to 20 years in prison, though he's likely to serve less than 5. Coming up, most fires are started by people, so the most common missteps that cause them, you should know about them, and we will tell you all about it on the other side. Plus, the cars that are being recalled because of dangerous metal fragments that can hit drivers and passengers. And later, a man jumps off a skydiving plane not long before that same plane takes a tragic turn. More when we come back. Right now, more than 150 million people under heat alerts as extreme temperatures continue on both coasts. Las Vegas just reached a record of 5 consecutive days at 115 degrees or higher. Dozens of daily record highs are forecast over much of the west through Saturday. Hazardous heat will expand over portions of the central and eastern United States this weekend. As the intense heat continues, multiple states still dealing with wildfires. In California, more than 200,000 acres have burned in this season so far, while 44 new fires have ignited in the last 24 hours alone. In Arizona, fires north of Tucson forcing people in about 300 homes to evacuate, while in Oregon, some residents were given the go now evacuation order as a fire south of the Dallas grew to 7,000 acres with still 0% contained as of the last report. And in Oregon, peak wildfire season has yet to officially begin, as it is considered to be mid-July through August. But even at its worst, most fires are not natural. The National Desk's Wright Gassaway has more about the importance of stopping fires before they begin.
Devastating wildfires are all too common in Oregon. Over 70% of them are started by people.
If we don't have restrictions in place, that number could just keep growing.
This is Levi Hopkins, a spokesperson from the Oregon Department of Forestry. The agency protects and manages more than 16 million acres of state forest land.
The blue is state forest land.
He says the main culprit behind human-caused wildfires is debris burning. Heat and wind can even rekindle old fires you thought were out weeks ago.
Go check those debris piles that you had in the spring. Make sure they're out, make sure they're cold to the touch, put some more water on them.
Unattended campfires are another way people start wildfires. Also sparks from mowing the lawn, using tow chains, and of course, flicking out lit cigarettes. And if you start a fire on ODF-protected land, even accidentally, expect the state to hand you the bill.
So that could be a $200 bill, it could be a $2 million bill.
That's because suppressing fires uses a lot of resources.
We suppress, on average, over 1,000 fires a year, just the Department of Forestry.
ODF is the largest fire suppression agency in the state.
This trailer, it's really most of our logistical support for it when we do go onto a large fire.
In the event of a major fire, they can deploy thousands of firefighting personnel, hundreds of supportive staff, and all the equipment they require.
Really, these would roll out on those most complex Type 1, Type 2 wildfires.
ODF can handle fire suppression, but they need your help with prevention. There's one easy step you can take.
Check the restrictions of where you are.
Before you strike a match, learn which activities are restricted in your area. This allows ODF to focus on destructive fires that humans can't prevent.
Let us focus on those lighting fires that they're going to happen. Let us focus on those because those are usually more remote.
And tonight, the two astronauts waiting for over a month for their return home after docking at the ISS using Boeing's Starliner spacecraft say they are confident they could make it back safely and that they are well prepared for the challenge at hand.
That mantra you've heard, failure is not an option. That's why we are staying here now. We did have some degradation and our thrusters, and we know that. And that's why we're staying, because we're going to test it. That's what we do.
Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams were the first to ride the Boeing capsule, arriving in early June. They were expected to stay for just a week, but newly discovered technical issues, including leaks and thruster failures, curtailed those plans, and Boeing has delayed their return date by an unspecified number of weeks. Right now, world leaders are in Washington, D.C. for day 2 of the NATO summit. President Biden opened a working session today by stressing the importance of keeping up with Russia's production of military supplies. The U.S. also said F-16 fighter jets are on their way to Ukraine.
Those jets will be flying in the skies of Ukraine this summer to make sure that Ukraine can continue to effectively defend itself against the Russian aggression.
Over 390,000 BMWs in the U.S. are being recalled because the airbag inflators can explode. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says sharp pieces of metal could fly out and injure or even kill the driver or passengers. The recall covers the models listed right there on your screen. Dealers will make any necessary replacements for free. And tonight, an alarming new Gallup study, 1 in 5 Americans in a survey said that they felt lonely the day before. Psychiatrists say that number is likely much higher, calling it a medical problem that should be taken very seriously.
Isolation, especially among seniors, can lead to some serious cognitive declines as well as declines with our cardiovascular health.
Doctors say it's the equivalent of having somebody smoke 15 cigarettes per day and increases the risk for stroke, dementia, and premature mortality. Also, what can your legs indicate about your overall health? That's an interesting question, perhaps a little bit more than you'd think. And our Liz Bonus takes a look at one common condition and why addressing it could impact your health positively for years to come.
Hey there, everybody. If you notice sort of a heaviness or an achy feeling in your legs that seems to gradually get worse throughout the day, don't assume it's just the way you're supposed to feel. Little vein therapy, one woman says, changed her life.
You know, I didn't really realize how heavy my legs felt until they're fixed. I was a hairstylist for almost 40 years, so I did a lot of 12, 14-hour days and didn't really realize.
Sharon Hibbs had a problem vascular surgeon Dr. Andy Hearns says is common in as many as 1 in 3 people. It's called vascular insufficiency.
It's a form of poor circulation that involves the veins. Some leaky valves in the veins often cause reflux or backwards flow, and patients sense that by experiencing heaviness, aching, swelling, discoloration.
As he showed us then on another patient, it can be treated with the help of what's called radio frequency ablation.
And we can do that with good results because the anatomy is like a circular spider web of the veins. It's a network. So if we eliminate 1 or 2 of the threads of that network that are refluxing or flowing backwards, that diverts blood flow into the healthy paths that already exist.
To perform RFA, as it's called, the area of treatment is numbed and a tiny needle is attached to a tube that's inserted in the leg. On the end is a tip that uses radio frequency energy to heat and damage the walls of the veins and close them off.
As a result, the legs look better, less swollen, less discolored, less bulgy veins on the surface. So we get a good aesthetic result as well as a good functional result.
For Sharon, in just a few months, she says it's worked.
This has just been just wonderful. I mean, I don't use the word miracle very often, but it's almost like it's a miracle how much better my legs feel.
Now, in most cases, this kind of therapy is covered by your medical insurance plan, but in some cases, you may need prior authorization with your health insurer. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
All right, Liz, thank you. Coming up, temperatures are taking a toll on asylum seekers camping in Washington, how the government is trying to help. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
With the sun beating down on the tents and tarps that serve as homes for more than 150 asylum seekers, the shaded spaces inside these shelters offer little in the way of relief. Alessandro from Angola spoke to us through a translator.
Okay, it's been very hard for everyone because it's very hard, it's very hot, and nobody can be free.
The Low Income Housing Institute, or Lehigh, was able to take funding from King County and help place people in apartment buildings.
We're moving a few dozen families over the next week or so, actually this week.
Devin Hutchinson skydived out of a plane just hours before it crashed in North Carolina, killing the pilot and 2 passengers. It was a shock to Hutchinson, who said he and his friends had always wanted to go skydiving and finally were able to go for Hutchinson's bachelor trip. What was an incredible memory turned somber when Hutchinson saw the news the next morning.
I told, my friends that we had went with and it crushed us because those are the people that we had just
met less than 12 hours ago, and now they're not here.
Hutchinson said he'll always remember the way they lived their lives to the fullest and the impact they had.
I cannot imagine anyone thinking this is a good idea.
I think it's a good idea.
Not everyone's on board with the American Rounds ammunition vending machine at the Lowe's Market on Sattler Road in Canyon Lake. But according to the American Rounds CEO, Grant Majors, this doesn't work like any old vending machine. This is a video they posted on their website.
You can see here we have, a very secure automated retail machine. We're able to age verify. We scan a driver's license. It then takes 360 facial recognition for the purchase and matches it to the ID.
Much different than just putting in your dollar in the machine, dropping out your chosen delight.
Coming up, a 97-year-old Ohio woman is inspiring millions of people. The impressive feat she's accomplished at the gym. Stay with us. Before we go tonight, an introduction to one incredible 97-year-old woman. Merce Hershey walks with a walker, but she is also a walking inspiration, now known in Cincinnati for her ability to lift heavier weights than most people half her age.
Stand nice and tall.
Yep, that video there, that went viral, showing her deadlifting 53 pounds off the floor. It went viral, reaching more than 4 million people. She started in the gym twice a week to help build strength after a fall and a couple fractures, but never left after finding she was gaining more mobility and confidence than ever before.
I have scoliosis and everything else, but I can get out here and do it. And I think most people could if they tried.
And you know what? I think she's on to something. No excuses. We'll leave it on that positive note. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the National Desk. We do invite you to join us again this evening for more coverage on America's top stories. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great night.